Welcome back to the 2020 Macabre Month of Horror. Be sure to subscribe to the channel if you aren't already so you don't miss any of the horror content coming out this month right here at Brickwall Pictures. Today's review is for The Wishing Stairs, a South Korean horror film from 2003.
영원히 너와 함께 있고 싶어. 너와 함께 있고 싶어. 너와 함께 있고 싶어. 한 번만이라도 너처럼 되고 싶어. 28 29 여우야 여우야 내 소원을 들어줘.
The Wishing Stairs is actually part of a long-running horror film series whose title translates directly to Girls' High School. The stories are all different, but they're all supernatural horror stories set in, well, girls' high schools. The series is also called the Whispering Corridors series, named after the first film in the series. Then came Memento Mori, and then the subject of today's video, The Wishing Stairs. Why am I reviewing the third film in a series without reviewing the first two? Because they're completely standalone films and you don't need to watch them in any particular order. And also, I haven't actually seen the first two yet. I didn't know this was part of a series until after it was over. The Wishing Stairs of the title are situated right outside the girls' school dormitory. There's a long flight of 28 steps, but legend has it, sometimes a 29th step appears. And if it does, you can ask the fox to grant you a wish. Who or what the fox is never explained or even mentioned outside of them making wishes. As you would guess, this legend turns out to be true. It's perhaps a little too true, as it seems like this 29th step just appears for everybody. There are so many wishes made on this magical 29th step. It starts to feel a lot less special after a while. It's basically that same old monkey's paw story. Be careful what you wish for. It's been done to death in the horror genre. You'll get your wish granted, but at what cost? It's pretty cliche at this point, and it was already cliche back in 2003 also. Luckily, the film has plenty going on outside of this trope, and it doesn't actually rely too heavily on the wish granting as the dramatic engine of the film. The film has plenty going on drama-wise, albeit mostly pretty stock standard stuff. It stays pretty surface level, but it sets a lot of things in motion. Two main plot threads run concurrently at first and eventually join up. One following a pair of friends, one of whom becomes obsessively jealous, and the other thread following an overweight student who is constantly being bullied, the black sheep of the school. I think on paper this character may have been fine, but the actor's performance was just awful. She's so over the top. Her performance is like a caricature. She really sticks out from the rest of the cast, who all do pretty good jobs otherwise and feel a lot more natural. Without spoiling anything, her character goes through a shift at a certain point, and that actor's strengths show a whole lot more after this character change.
소희 죽었대.
어제 소희가 제 방에 왔었어요.
The first half of the film doesn't really have much in the way of horror. It sets up a lot of things, but I wouldn't be surprised to hear some people call the first half boring. I didn't personally feel bored at any point, though. I thought the film built a pretty good sense of atmosphere and had an interesting cinematography, despite a few moments of distracting editing where things seem to be cut a bit too quick for the style of the rest of the film. A couple of scenes feel like they end a little prematurely. The second half of the film is where the horror really kicks off. The movie essentially becomes a haunted house tour halfway through. The scares come fast and frequent, but are at varying levels of quality. Some of the scares feel fresh and effective, and they're quite memorable. I love this scare with the hair. But then there are plenty of other scares that don't work nearly as well. There are a great deal of scares that feel like rehashes of scares from other films, and they're just so like minor that they don't have any impact at all. I like when a scare relates specifically to the film that it's placed within, but many of the scares in The Wishing Stairs feel like they could fit into a dozen other movies. Much of the horror is non-specific and overly general. The scares come off as disjointed much of the time, and they run together one after another without the cohesion provided by narrative relevance. Eventually, after 20 or 30 minutes of random spooky happenings, this haunted house tour slows down a bit, and the film gets a grip on the narrative once again. By the time that happens and things finally start lining up, I was actually pretty satisfied with how everything tied together. There were a couple moments of clever recursion that surprised me in good ways, and the wrap-up to the main characters made up for some of the earlier shortcomings in my eyes. The Wishing Stairs doesn't get a huge recommendation, but it does get a laid-back recommendation. It's okay. Not great, but pretty decent. It would make for a good rainy day watch, or if you've already gone through most of the bigger Japanese and South Korean ghost films already, and you're looking for something new, then give it a watch. So that's it for today. Be sure to subscribe and check out the rest of the Macabre Month of Horror. And while you're here, why not check out the Macabre Month of Horror for 2018, or the one for 2017. Playlists right here on the end screen or in the description. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.